Telling project, sort of thumbnail, since 2007, we've been working with veterans and military family members around the country to put together performances in which they tell their own stories of their life in and around the military. Live on stage for their communities. It's been largely a community-oriented effort, and we've done, at this point, 70 plus different productions, over 300 performances around the country. And it's been a hugely enriching and enormous privilege to be doing this work. At this point, we are, for the last few years, we've been in a state of pivot. We've been changing our priorities, not away from military, but towards fewer and more produced productions. I think that for the first 10 years of our doing this work, we were really trying to proliferate the work as broadly as we possibly could. I think that at this point, what we see is that there are lots of people doing this work around the country now in wonderful ways. And what we are looking at is how we can use the skills that we have and the people that we have and the connections and networks that we have to create something that's you know, a little different for a while, both for our sake, for the recharging of our own batteries, but also because we feel like that's something that we can offer. You know, we've interviewed. I think that the last number was 11 or 1,200 people at this point about their experiences, and so we have a huge catalog of different takes on what the military in the United States is and has been. We've also expanded some of our work recently to include refugees and immigrants in different communities as well, talking about their experiences of displacement and arrival and replacement in the United States. So we're looking at a little bit more of a comprehensive view of the impacts of military action at this point, but we're also focusing more specifically on certain groups of stories and certain groups of individuals. You know, as probably with a number of people here on this call, the last 9 months has been interesting and challenging. And enriching in certain ways as well. But I'm going to stop there because I want to hear what everybody else has to say. So thank you again.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. We'll keep talking about it. Thank you. Roman, are you there? Roman? Oh,
I am. Thanks, Lois. Hi, everyone. Roman Baca with Exit 12 Dance Company. Which started in 2007, right alongside Jonathan, as solely a way for me to come back from service in the United States Marine Corps, deployed to Fallujah, Iraq in 2005, 2006, which was a life-changing event for me. And I was a ballet dancer before I went into the Marine Corps. And so coming back from war, I turned back to the dance and the arts to start investigating these experiences that I had. We've been working since 2007 and expanded our work to not only include other voices and start talking about the experience of war on stage, but started doing workshops with military veterans from around the United States, with people that have been impacted by war from other countries. And from now, we've been working with veterans from other countries as well. We are now a 501c3 nonprofit, and we endeavor to do performances to introduce audiences to the experiences of war to increase empathy and peace building. We do workshops with veterans and civilians to bridge the veteran-civilian divide to increase within the military member feelings and motivations of creativity and inspiration And we also lecture and talk about our work, hopefully to inspire people to do likewise, to do things to change their world. As Jonathan remarked, we were set on a banner year for 2020. We were going to tour all over the world. And COVID threw a big wrench in those plans. So we pivoted quickly and got together with some prominent veteran artists, including Stefan Wolfert, Jenny Pekanowski, Faye Simpson, and started a veteran online portal called VALOP, Veteran Art Workshops, where veterans could come online and get involved with art workshops for free. Stefan doing Decruit, Jenny Pekanowski doing embodied writing programs, movement workshops, and then we started partnering with other organizations around the world and offering mindfulness, meditation, art, guitar. Exit 12 then embarked on 2 virtual programs where we produced 2 virtual works. One was called War Leaves Pieces, that was done with 3 prominent veteran poets and 5 artists embodying their poetry, which was released virtually on September 11th. And then we just released a new work on Veterans Day called In the Words of Others, where we honored the veterans that we've worked with throughout the years through the words of our artists and dancers. You can find both of those on our website, on YouTube, and Instagram, social media. But I talk too much, and I'll pass the torch.
No, you don't. I like when other people talk. It's less speaking that I have to do.
Can we get those websites in the chat? Can you enter those websites both?
I'll make sure everybody gets all of everybody else's information, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Because I'm afraid if I do something, I might screw up the recording. But I'll send it to everybody. Nancy, are you there? Nancy? Oh, there you are. Nancy?
There we go.
There you go.
Hi, I am Nancy Smith-Watson, the program director of Feast of Crispian. We started in 2013 working inside the Zablocki VA hospital in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Feast of Crispian uses primarily Shakespeare. And we do the foundation of our work is the therapeutic work that we do, which is we do weekend intensives inside the VA system and some outside, and use the magical properties of Shakespeare to help really make some changes in the brain that help people move beyond PTS. We also do, obviously, I'm telling you what we would do in a normal year. None of this is happening now. I expect it's probably pretty much similar everywhere in the country, but our VA hospital is completely locked down right now. We have a lot of COVID in Milwaukee. It's one of the worst places in the world, actually, right now. But in a normal year, we also do 1 full production. And so those are fully veteran acted productions that veterans who, mostly it's veterans who've been through several of our workshops and really just want to keep doing the work, and they do productions. And they're Shakespeare based, but they always have something about the veterans' personal stories that are invited into the piece. 3 years ago, Jim's here, one of my partners, Jim Tassi, is here too. What was it, about 3-4 years ago? We did our first original piece called And Come Safe Home, which is from the same speech that Feast of Crispian and the same speech that Band of Brothers is from, that we gathered stories from all the veterans that were in the show and a lot of other veterans as well, and put them into an on-stage piece that we're really, really proud of. 2 years ago, and Jonathan was a part of that, Telling Project was a part of that, we did the first Veterans Theater Festival, National Veterans Theater Festival, and brought in several groups to come in, which was an amazing experience. I mean, Roman talked a little bit about being able to bring together civilians and veterans, and that's really that's definitely something that we do in our outreach for these shows. That's kind of the purpose of the shows, is to get the veterans out into the community and really talking to civilians and really opening up so that they can talk about anything. We find that there's veterans they really believe that nobody understands them and nobody cares about them, and civilians will think that they don't have anything in common with veterans, and they're afraid to say something wrong and whatever their fear is. And so it's really, really hard to get people to talk to each other. And we do these shows, and it brings out, somebody gets to sit in the room and be entertained and hear these stories, and it allows for them to feel more comfortable to start talking with each other. But I could go all day with the kinds of properties that being able to do performative arts, expressive arts are for this kind of thing. But I think I'll just leave it at that at this point and leave that for people who have specific questions later on.
Thanks, Nancy.
Thank you.
Seema, you want to go since you have to leave, early?
Sure. I'm Seema Reeza, CEO of Community Building Artworks. My co-founder, Joe Merritt, is there. He's one of my dearest friends, and I'm grateful to be on this journey with him. We got our start in military hospitals many, many years ago under a DoD contract, so about a decade ago at Walter Reed Army Medical Center, and discovered the importance of connection. I think there's a sense, I almost want to say, like, let's normalize not being okay. There's a sense that everybody's okay except me, of being alone in our circumstances, to borrow a phrase from a veteran in our performance last week. And that falls when you are authentically connecting with other people. And so we create spaces where people can authentically connect, which it seems like that's what everyone here does, which is wonderful. But we primarily use visual art and creative writing. We are not therapists. That's really important to us. We are professional artists, and we sort of work in three ways. One, in spaces where people don't necessarily want to work with us. So that's within treatment programs where they're sort of like strong-armed in some way, or strongly suggested that they participate. And then we have open sessions that are open to everyone. We used to do them, of course, at the USO on post. Those were open only to folks that could get on post. Now everything's online. And then we have amplified programs, which are opportunities for folks to collaborate on telling a story and performing. But the real spine of our program are these open sessions, which as soon as COVID hit, we opened up to everyone, regardless of military service. And really it's writing or creating art in the shadow of other really great art, and using art as an epistemological tool for understanding why we're weird, and because we're all weird, and then finding the words to share that with the people around us, because that's what a community is. It's a group of people who understand what everyone else's sort of weirdnesses are, and make space for it and allow it and see beneath that mask. And that's what we do. And I'd invite any of you to please join any of our workshops. We are always, CreatiVets is an amazing organization, and ASAP, and there are a lot of organizations that are doing really cool work, and we're always pushing people, like, use us as a gateway drug, and then get into the more serious sort of professional art making after that. So
Can you talk a little bit, just a little intro about the HBO movie, the We Are Not Done Yet? That's actually how I found you guys.
yeah, absolutely. So the HBO documentary "We Are Not Done Yet" was sort of an accidental documentary. We didn't know that was going to happen from it, but it was one of our amplified programs. So it was a group of veterans and active duty service members coming together under the direction of the actor Jeffrey Wright to write and perform a collaborative poem and present it on stage in DC to an audience of 450 people. And it was coming together. So it was such a cool thing that we got a small grant to hire a filmmaker to just like follow us around. And we thought it would be literally either on YouTube or on television in Sierra Leone, which is where Jeffrey does a lot of work. And it ended up in being an HBO documentary that followed these veterans through their stories. And through, most importantly, I think the overlap, the sort of Venn diagram overlap of the experience of trauma. I think there's like a stereotypical veteran, and then there's, you know, the broader reality of who serves in our military. And it was really delightful to see a lot of narratives held up on equal footing.
Yeah, it's a powerful documentary. Joe, do you have anything to add to
that? Thanks for having us here. Don't have a whole lot extra that Seema hasn't already said, other than, you know, I came into this work from the other side of the table as a participant. I found creative spaces back in 2011 when I was still active duty through an outpatient program is where I met Seema at in a writing group. And one of those strong arm groups, as she liked to call it earlier, where I didn't really want to be there at first, and found it really, really beneficial. And since I've gotten out, have made it my work, on top of, you know, continually working on myself and my own arts practice, but to help give other people voices and help show them ways of communicating to help them grow. And that's what our mission is at Community Building Artworks, is amplifying those voices and showing people how to communicate when they get back. A lot of that is lost. A lot of those skills, they tell you in different therapy, inpatient programs and outpatient programs. I've been through all of them. And one of the things they always say is that, you know, build a network and do this and do that, but they don't tell you how to do any of that. They're like, go build a network, go do this, and then you'll be A-okay. And you're like, well, how do I do that? And they're like, see you later, bye. And I think that one of the things that we can really help people do, like Seema was saying, with these different steps of the program, when we go into these closed groups and people are being told, hey, you need to build these networks and find community again. It's like, hey, here's something you might not be into, but it shows them that there are other programs out there. I used to tell people at Walter Reed all the time, whatever it is that you like to do, whether it's art or writing or golf or mountain climbing, go find as many people that want to do that and just go hang out with them. You'll find other veterans doing that. You'll find non-veterans, find ways of building community. And if we can help you do that, then that's what we're here for. And that's all I got. Thanks for letting me share.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Seema. Richard, you want to take it?
Yeah, thanks for having me. My name is Richard Casper. I started CreatiVets back in 2013, where our mission is to empower wounded veterans to heal through the arts and music. And I was not an artist, not a songwriter, not a musician, didn't do anything before war, from a town of 1,100 people, farm town. So art wasn't a thing, but it wasn't until my injuries in Iraq, where I suffered from 4 different explosions that left with a left traumatic brain injury. My right brain took over. I discovered art at a local community college, which led me to being enrolled into the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, which is a lot longer story how I got there. But then I really dived into the idea of conceptual art, telling my story without telling my story. And in the same parallel, I started writing music, because my gunner who shot and killed beside me, I needed his voice to be heard. And I thought, how cool it'd be to have a song that I could just give to people so I didn't have to break down and cry. That's where CreatiVets comes in. Now our top tier programs, we fly veterans from anywhere in the country, pay for their flights, their food, their housing to Nashville, Tennessee, and they get to sit down with #1 or pro songwriters to tell their story for the first time. With peer-to-peer mentorship, it's always another veteran, like-minded veteran, who's helping them craft that story. But they go into these rooms. Actually, we just expanded our partnership with the Grand Ole Opry, so we write backstage at the Grand Ole Opry. Everything we do is to try to get the veterans' excitement to outweigh everything else, all the anxiety, all the depression, all the friction points that causes veterans not to seek help. We're trying to just eliminate those by saying, hey, this is like a bucket list thing. You get to fly to Nashville, tell your story with #1 songwriters, and then put that music out there to share with your family and friends. Because most of the veterans, they say, I can't tell my wife or children this. And then they write a song about it. The first person they text their song to is their family. And it's super empowering. Our art programs, we've hosted these at the University of Southern California, the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, and Virginia Commonwealth University. And we'll do the same thing. We'll pay for the flights, the food, the housing, the tuition. They'll do a 3-week fully accredited program at one of these schools, learning how to tell their story through art. They have access to everything students would have access to. So 3D printing, the wood shop, the metal shop, the ceramic studios. We cover everything. They live in dorms like normal students. They go to class like normal students. The only difference is everyone in the class is a veteran, and it's taught by a veteran with the world-renowned teachers in the school. And then we have an art gallery at the end of the 3 weeks, and then we send that art around the country. It usually always ends up at the National Veteran Art Museum for at least a month or 2, so that veterans could come in and civilians could come in and hear those stories. And we do a lot of other programs. Those are like our top tier ones. And one step further with our music, because CreatiVets' ultimate goal is to be in the homes of every veteran in the United States through our music and online art program, because we understand that, 20 suicides in the military veteran space, 14 don't seek help. So how do we get to those who aren't actually seeking it? They're not coming on these. They're not going to the VAs. They just need help, but they don't know it or they don't want it. We partnered with Big Machine Records, and for those that you don't know, they're the ones that launched Taylor Swift, and on their roster now is Florida Georgia Line, Tim McGraw, Rascal Flatts, Justin Moore, Aaron Lewis. So they have a whole slew of artists, but they actually just signed CreatiVets, a nonprofit, as an artist, and they've been releasing our music. So we have 11 songs called Veteran Songs on every streaming platform you can think of, because we're getting in the homes of these veterans and saying, hey, you're not alone. These are real raw songs. We just released our first female veteran song November 6th, called Picture in the Frame. And we have some artists attached to the project. And then we went one more step further and we partnered with Amazon, because we know that veterans have some of these devices in their houses. And so if you say, Alexa, play music by veterans, it plays our album. And I'm sorry if I triggered anybody's Alexa, but I know where we're trying to get to, and that's to the veterans who, when I came home, I searched for veteran music. I just wanted to feel, I actually found a rapper named Soldier Hard, and I don't even like rap, but I downloaded his album because I felt connected to his music. That's what I want other veterans to do, is not know we exist, say that into the Alexa, and then hear our music, and then research us, find us, and then come through our programs where we can help them transition their warrior brain to their artist brain. And since COVID, we've been going a lot of virtual, and it's actually been super beneficial because we're doing a lot more B2B. Like we're working with Heather at the Columbus VA doing songwriting classes with a #1 songwriter who virtually goes into there and then teaches them songwriting over a 4-week course. We partner with Mission Continues and Camp Corral to offer programs for the children of veterans, but taught by veterans who are doing arts. So we've helped more veterans ever because of COVID, but we haven't been able to do our real big programs lately. But that's in a nutshell what we do, but we do even a lot more than that, if you can believe it.
Multi-talented. Congratulations on the recording contract.
Thanks so much, because ultimately royalties will come back to CreatiVets so we can be self-sustaining and just continuously bring veterans in. So it's been
it's been pretty awesome. I know 2020 has been bad for a lot of people, but for us, where we're trying to get to, the record deal and the online has helped a lot more veterans than we ever thought.
Pluses and negatives. Okay, thank you. Grace, do you want to talk?
Sure. I'm Grace Belzario. I'm the Programs Manager of the Armed Service Arts Partnership, or ASAP as we like to say. I'm so thankful to be on the panel with all of you guys, and it's just a privilege to hear about all of your organizations. We have a little bit of similar experience with Richard Casper's group, where we're kind of seeing the benefits of virtual programming and just other opportunities in 2020 that we wouldn't have saw before this year. My connection to ASAP is that I'm a community member, being a military spouse, and also having a mother and brother who also serve. Also, a large part of my background is the arts. I've been an artist since I was a child and majored in graphic design at the Corcoran College of Art and Design before it became part of George Washington University. I decided really early on in my career that nonprofit is where I want to be. I really had a heart to serve people. And I found that ASAP was a place I could both support my military community and the arts. One thing that really drew me was the connection established in our community. We have a really tight-knit community. When people take our programs, they generally stay around and they want to connect with each other and follow up. And they see how the arts are having wellness benefits for their lives and those that are around them. So a little bit about ASAP. We provide no-cost opportunities for veterans, military families to thrive through the arts. This year alone, our Washington, D.C.-based nonprofit has served more than 400 veterans across 35 states, in addition to those overseas, such as Japan, Germany, and Iraq. If you're looking at the time difference, yeah, we have people taking programs at 1 in the morning, and they're excited to take them. People are doing improv at 1 a.m., 2 a.m. in the morning, and they come to the grad show just as excited as they are when they apply. Our programs consist of 2 flagship multi-week classes. That's Comedy Bootcamp and Storytelling Bootcamp. We also have classes in improv, creative writing, fine arts, acting, and all of our multi-week classes also that culminate in a grad show of some sort. This year it's kind of weird. We're doing everything virtual. So creative writing doesn't have a grad show, but they have a grad publication. And same thing with our gallery for our fine artists. They're doing an online virtual gallery. We're also offering one-day workshops, which feature a variety of different art forms. And these are the ones that are kind of like fun one-offs, like glass fusing and dance, screenwriting, poetry, and even things like British dialect for those in the performing arts. While our comedy and storytelling classes are primarily taught by community members using the curriculum that we've developed, the remaining programs we offer are taught by our art partners, those on our Artist Council, and also guests by special arrangement. Our organization name is called the Armed Services Arts Partnership because our nonprofit links with professionals in the arts field to bring these opportunities to our community. This is kind of like a really sweet spot for us because should our participants enjoy our classes or workshops, they can continue on in that art education and skill building through that partner. We also offer scholarships should any classes they find outside of our free programming be cost prohibitive. All of our instructors have the opportunity to go through teacher artist training 1 to 2 times a year. Through this training, we prepare instructors to be culturally competent and trauma aware in the classroom. Earlier this year, we were able to offer this teaching to teaching artists in Virginia through a partnership with the Virginia Commission on the Arts. So that is actually expanding. We're being able to, really offer things to, teaching artists that are not even part of our program, which is really phenomenal. So why offer these programs? Well, our research finds that participants that take our program show improved resilience, self-esteem, sense of purpose, and belonging. At ASAP, we have a evidence-based model. So we don't just say that we improve, that improved resilience happens. We know it does through our research. We've established a monitoring and evaluation system using mixed methods approaches that started back in 2018. ASAP recently released our latest program impact report. And if you're interested in learning more about that, you can find it on our website at our impact tab. And so you may be wondering actually how COVID has changed our program model. Well, we had plenty of changes here. In prior years, we only had physical hubs in Washington, D.C. and Hampton Roads, Virginia. We made a huge pivot to all 100% online classes in March of this year. We didn't have, not even like Zoom meetings. We didn't even have Zoom meetings, with each other. So everything went virtual. So we went from 2 workshops and 2 performances each month, along with the seasonal classes, to having workshops and performances on a weekly basis. We quickly learned the differences between like CDNs and open broadcast software and all the ins and outs of Zoom and all the pitfalls of Zoom as well. We also made all these changes with a relatively small staff. The bulk of our pivots were made with 3 full-time employees and 2 part-time, and only 2 of those 5 staff were dedicated programs employees. As we wrap up this year, we'll have offered about 60 workshops, 24 classes, and nearly 70 performances. And we plan to continue offering virtual opportunities as part of our regular program offerings in 2021 and beyond. So how do people usually get involved? For those that want to take classes, workshops, or perform at community open mics, we encourage them to apply at our website, asap.org. And people find us in so many different ways. So performances, panels like this, social media, word of mouth, and the most surprising of all, physical flyers. 50% of the people that find us on flyers. It's the weirdest thing. They'll be like, oh, I found you at the Starbucks. And I'm like, what? What is that about? I never would have thought that prior to joining our staff, especially because I came from a comms director position. And I was like, this is really strange. But yeah, that's how they find us. They also volunteer. Our volunteers are amazing. They help support events, do community outreach, support community building, and assist with administrative tasks and fundraise. And the last way that people stay in the know with ASAP is through our e-news. And people just subscribe to our newsletter, and that's how they found out all the information. Actually, in our e-newsletter, we share a lot of all of your guys' organizations, CreatiVets. We definitely promote like the music that you guys come out. When things happen at Exit 12, we definitely share those shows and things that are going on with CBA. And we'll definitely probably plug the rest of you guys as well, now that I know that you guys are in our network. But yeah.
Thank you, Grace. Okay, Heather, you want to take it away?
Hi, yeah, thank you. I am so excited to be here tonight. So my name is Heather Seymour. I'm a social worker at the Columbus VA, and I'm the Creative Arts Coordinator. So I have the best job in the VA, I think. My position here is the only one in the United States, but I'm hoping that's going to change real quickly. So my position started in 2018 when we started doing research on the psychological and health benefits of art making. So I came in as a full-time social worker, doing therapy all day, and but I came from a mother who is an artist and a writer, and she was hit by a car when I was 16 and got a pretty substantial traumatic brain injury, and was dealing with a lot of PTS. But this was back in the 90s, and we didn't know a lot about traumatic brain injury back then. So my mom, who has a number of masters in arts and writing, was having a really hard time getting out of bed, and was struggling a lot with remembering just how to get home from the grocery store. But the only place that she said she felt like herself was making art. And so every summer she would go to Haystack Mountain Art School in Maine. So I'm from Maine. And that was the one place that she felt like she didn't have this disability. She was kind of free from all of the things that made her feel so ashamed and made her isolate. And so I didn't really understand my mom until I started learning about the brain in my master's program. And I was really lucky enough to go to a school where all of the social work was based on the neurobiology of resiliency. And so when I started learning about my mom and just had this giant epiphany, like, oh my God, I had myself have a background in photography and filmmaking, and I got real lucky to be able to come into this Columbus VA and kind of create my dream job, which is kind of a coordination of programs with community partners. A lot of community partners such as you. We have a Shakespeare theater project that was based out of the Feast of Crispian with Kevin McClatchy at the Ohio State University Theater Department. We also have a collaboration with the Wexner Center where we do mindfulness in the gallery walls and do contemporary art discussion. So all of our stuff was in person. We have theater, dance, writing, music, and visual arts. We also have an open studio that ran twice a week where we would provide the art materials and just have folks come in. And that was really like the bones of our project, because this is where the actual fellowship happened and where we got support and the volunteer, it just kind of exploded really into this giant program that was we've been chasing ever since. So our latest project that we're really excited about is a partnership with the Gateway Film Center and the National Veterans Memorial Museum. And we have created the National Veterans Film Festival, which was supposed to start this grand premiere in September of 2020. Because of COVID, we have postponed it to 2021. But we really wanted to make sure that we kept kind of the momentum that we were building. So we've just premiered for the first time a film that was another collaboration with the Columbus College of Art and Design, which paired 21 students and 28 veterans together in animation classes, documentary film classes, and podcasting classes. And we've put this film together, which is kind of it's excerpts of different animations, podcasts, and documentary films, and it's called Restory. And originally we were just going to have it for a few days, but we were able to extend the screening, so hopefully you guys will get links to that. It's a free screening for all, and we're really trying to engage, as we're all talking about engaging and finding different ways to outreach and start conversations about people's experiences. So I'm really glad to be here. I hope that you guys share it all. And I really look forward to seeing what this Zoom meeting brings, because I'm writing down your names and like little bits and pieces. And I'm so excited to talk to you all, because the VA really is coming into a really interesting kind of time. We've started a new cultural shift towards whole health and looking at the mind, the body, personal development, relationships, surroundings, how all these things impact our ability to be resilient, and how this specifically ties into suicide prevention. And so it's with these community partnerships with Richard from CreatiVets or WOSU or OSU or Columbus College of Art and Design that we find the ability to really tie in other people and work as a team, truly work as a team, because no one person can solve veteran suicide or suicide in general. No one organization can fill all the needs. So it's so lovely, Grace, that you're sharing so much, and I can't wait to see you're dancing at Exit 12. I mean, just like, I'm so inspired by everyone's work. So I am so honored to be part of this, and I can't wait to see what comes of this, because this feels really, really important. So thank you.
Heather, do you guys do any specific art therapy programs, or it's just general, the arts?
So actually the VA is one of the biggest, or the biggest employers for art therapy. I'm a social worker, I'm not an art therapist. And I just applied for a grant to get some art therapists. I just heard of a music therapy program that's gonna be coming in. So we don't offer art therapy at this location. However, there are dance therapists, there are art therapists, there are music therapists all over the country at different VAs. And I think as we go on, I wouldn't be surprised in the next year or two, it's mandated that every single VA have some kind of art, music, or
that would
dance.
be amazing. That would
Yeah.
be a whole coordinated therapeutic art program across the entire VA system would be phenomenal.
Yeah.
I
And
know
so
the people at the American Art Therapy Association if you need help.
Yes, definitely. I absolutely. And one of the conversations is like, how do people get connected to the local VA, because I get calls all the time being like, you know, I reached out and I didn't know who to talk to, and I don't know really exactly how to do that. I mean, some people are very lucky, they know the right people to call, but it can be really frustrating. I mean, I work at the VA and I'm completely frustrated sometimes. And Richard has dealt with so many bureaucratic ridiculousness that act as barriers, but there are so many innovators here. There's so many people who are like so passionate and ready to bust down walls and break shit open because we are, it's a force of nature, and we have the research to back it up. And I'm so excited to hear about your research, Grace. And so, yeah, I'm just excited to be working as a team here.
Wow, that's amazing. Amy was just here a minute ago, wasn't she? I wanted her to talk about the movie. Oh, there you are. As long as you're here, you might as well talk about, I'll give you a chance to talk about Visceral.
Thank you, Lois. So I feel like an interloper here, but I wanted to mention that the Feast of Crispian is featured prominently in my documentary, Visceral, Transforming Trauma Through Theater. And it features 4 individual stories, and 3 of them are veterans. The film is, right now, I'm just waiting to hear back from film festivals, and I just had a screening over the weekend for a small benefit for the Feast of Crispian and Warrior Songs. Warrior Songs is Jason Moon's organization, and he was you know, in the film as well. So thank you for letting me mention it, Lois.
Sure, that's the whole idea of this, is to share information and to network and to talk about great programs that are out there. That's the problem. It's generally communication that's the issue. Arlene, did you have a?
Let me make sure I have to leave by 5 o'clock, but your time. But I'd like to mention 2 ideas to the wonderful work that everyone is doing. Number 1, I'm deeply involved in the arts here. I was president of the Arts Council for the entire county, and we've supported a number of projects. One of them was a mural project at our Veterans Transition Center, which is rated as one of the among the top organizations to help veterans through all aspects, including housing many of the homeless veterans. Monterey had a Fort Ord that was operational since World War I and has seen hundreds of thousands of veterans go through this region. And right now, just in Monterey County, more than 10% of our population of 435,000 is a vet. So think also about painting and collaborating with local organizations that deal with veterans homelessness, etc. But I also did something that I think each of your organizations can capitalize on. Somebody should mute themselves.
Yeah, somebody
background.
Getting a lot of background.
Yeah, thank you. The person who has 646 as their area code. Can you mute them, please, Lois?
I got it.
Thanks. So I'm also on the board of various arts organizations here. For example, a music organization. And what we did was we wrote a grant to get free complimentary tickets to veterans. And so we have these veterans organizations here, including one called GI Josie, that is dealing specifically with female veterans and their families. And we gave out tickets to a chamber music concert at a beautiful venue. Washington, D.C., you have so many venues for the arts. All of you who are in cities have so many venues. Contact your arts organizations, ask them for complimentary tickets, and give them out to your vets for a night out, for a cultural event, for dance, for music, for theater. you'd be surprised how many donors in those organizations are themselves vets or would be willing to support veterans attending arts, not just making art, is what the point that I'm trying to emphasize. And finally, that documentary, Service When Women Come Marching Home, is an Emmy Award-winning documentary. So many people have not paid attention to what happened to our female vets, both in terms of wounds, in terms of military rape, in terms of PTSD, and in terms of dealing with the special issues of women. So I would suggest that you can watch that documentary with your vets, male and female, and have a discussion about it. One of the other films the filmmakers made, called Soldiers Period, is a hysterical 5-minute film on how male soldiers react to female soldiers when the female soldiers are menstruating. So I just wanted to mention all of that, and I look forward to learning from Lois and learning more about all of your organizations.
Thanks, Arlene. Arlene, you want to tell people what your background is so that they know where you're coming from?
Well, I'm a relative of Lois's. That's the most important.
That part you could have left.
We know each other practically her whole life because I'm so much older. But my whole career has been focused on the arts, education, and technology. I'm going to say it because younger people have told me to own it. I'm a pioneer in the field of distance education, and I am an expert grant writer. So I'm also a retired communications professor, having taught at New York University, the New School for Social Research, Marymount Manhattan College. And I came out to Monterey, leaving my beloved family in New York and New Jersey for 1 year. And I just fell in love with this gorgeous region. If you can see out my house now, I just have this beautiful view. Monterey and this whole peninsula area is breathtaking, and it just hit my spirit. And so I'm here now. 1 year became 20.
Thank you, Arlene.
So blessings to you all. And thanks again, Lois, for including.
I'll talk to you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thanks. Okay, at this point, I'd like to open it up, for conversation amongst all of us. Any questions right now? Anybody have any questions? Don't all ask at once. No questions.
Hi, Lois.
Hi, Jenny. Would you, as long as you popped up, why don't you introduce yourself as well?
So sad that Arlene hopped off because my organization answered that call to serve women veterans. Our organization is called Women Veterans Empowered and Thriving. I got out in 2006. There wasn't a whole lot of programming or anything for women combat veterans. They didn't know what to do with me, or they didn't believe in my service. It was a fantastic time to navigate the world and transition. Through that, eventually I found the arts in New York City with Ramon Baca, Stefan Wolfert, Faye Simpson. Hi! I also partnered with Ramon on the VOWOP thing. Veteran Artist Workshop Online Portal is actually the whole name. So we served women veterans primarily in the Lehigh Valley starting in 2016. COVID actually gave us a great opportunity to become national. So we label ourselves as a reintegration program, utilizing writing and performance to empower experiences and facilitate skills to thrive in daily lives. Veterans are great at surviving, but I want them to be happy, and I want them to thrive, and I want them to release the guilt and shame that comes with their stories. So that's what we founded. We got a partnership in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania with a local theater, Touchstone Theater. So we have a home. And then COVID happened, so we launched everything virtually. So we've had virtual programming since March. And due to the success of our women veterans program, we were approached by male veterans and family members. So now we have a section for empowerment writing for men and women veterans, as well as family members. And we do public speaking events, education and awareness. We're a fairly new nonprofit, especially nationally because of what happened with COVID. So again, plus for COVID, we got national access to those women veterans that are stuck in the house with the kids. We're really open to, if you have to hop in and out of the workshop, go check on kids, start dinner, that kind of stuff. So we're really, really an accessible program. The biggest problem we have is advertising, because we don't have a huge budget by any sense of the imagination. Let's see, I think that's all. Yeah, and we just partner with whoever and everybody that aligns with our mission statement, which is to help veterans ascend to the highest version and best versions of themselves, because so often they think the best version of themselves was in the military, and we want to bring them into this present moment, empower their experiences, and help them thrive. I didn't have any questions. I've heard a lot about a lot of these groups, so yay.
Thank you. I'm glad you were able to say that. Any other discussions, questions? Okay, then I'll pose a question. It was a very interesting article that I read actually in Psychology Today about trauma. Amy, you probably be very interested in this also. It's about post-traumatic creativity. And the doctor was talking about how trauma can break us down, but it can also break us open. It can unlock hidden potential inside us, open up new abilities and character strengths. It's almost as if when trauma and turmoil break us down, there's an opportunity for us to reform at a higher level of order, to fuse back together in a more integrated and higher functioning way. I was wondering what you thought of that.
I would love to find, if you could put the link in the chat.
I'll give everybody all of the resources. I'll send everybody, yeah.
Yeah, I think that, well, you met Carissa on Sunday.
Yeah, I was hoping that she was going to be here tonight.
I think she's a prime example, and I think Nancy would probably agree. She's done so much since I met her and we started working on the documentary. She's gone back to school, taken up photography, explored other art forms, and she's featured in a gorgeous dance at the end of the documentary, which I hate to give away, but because it's stunning. And so and she said, I would have never done these things before. So
yeah, that's why I was hoping that she was going to show up today. I actually met Carissa 3 years ago when I was doing a campaign that she participated in for me, and I actually posted one of her poems, Wounds of the Soldier, on LinkedIn and social media, and one of her stories that she wrote for me. Yeah.
Lois, who was the doctor that you said the doctor?
The doctor, it was just recently posted. It's called Post-Traumatic Creativity, How Psychological Turmoil Can Unlock Our Creative Potential, Dr. Steve Taylor. And it was literally posted in Psychology Today the other day on 11/16. He also went on to say that there's well-researched phenomenon of post-traumatic growth, which shows that trauma can have a long-term positive after effect. I thought that was very interesting about how we can take some of the hardest points and make something positive out of it. My other question I would like someone to answer, maybe Roman or Joe. I'm interested in how you actually, the process of turning the emotions and the stories into the art forms that you actually do. Somebody want to take it away? You're on stage.
Sure. You know, we started in a very narrative sort of storytelling format where I started to put things that happened overseas on stage so that I could delve into them deeper, look at these experiences from several perspectives, and to try and make sense of what went on when I served. And then we started inviting other choreographers to come in and do likewise, to tell stories that were important to them. We had a mother whose 2 sons were getting deployed to Afghanistan, and she came in and choreographed a ballet about about being a mother and going through that. And so we started out very, very literal. Recently, what I've been trying to do is kind of break away from the literal storytelling and give space to the audience in order for them to find connection points, for them to find stuff that exists within what we do that resonates to them in some way. The perfect example is the collaboration we recently did with Jenny, Omar, and Everett, which we called War Leaves Pieces. And what we did is we wanted to kind of shrink that gap that exists between, specifically for us, you know, the veteran artists that we work with and that are so wonderful, and the dancers that we work with that are so passionate about this work. And, you know, it's funny, you talk to our dancers and often they will say, why us? Why should we be doing this work? And then you delve a little bit deeper and you find out that, you know, Adrienne, one of our dancers, her father was a veteran, and she got closer to his experience through working with us. And of course, Lisa, my wife, is one of our dancers, and she was one of the big impetuses for us to start doing this work. But through this creative process, the dancers got on the phone with the veterans so that they're not just dealing with their poetry on a page, they're actually talking to them and delving deeper and sharing stories and finding connections. And with that, the embodiment that we evoked and that we filmed and that we put on stage was so much richer and a bit abstract, but abstract enough and tied to the stories that these veterans shared enough that it gave such a powerful look into not only what it's like to serve, come back, and try and deal with these things through art, but how to connect to those around you, how to connect to community, and how to find these things that make you and I want to know more about each other and create a community.
Yeah. Joe, did you want to say something?
So I came into art, like I said, through a hospital program. Growing up, I had a little bit of interest in art. I was always told that it was a waste of time, not to really bother with it. But what I found, finding writing and especially visual art, I consider myself more of a visual artist than a writer, was that ability to communicate things that I didn't have the words or the setting, mostly the setting for before. When I came back from my combat deployment in Afghanistan, I remember I was standing by the beach with my dad and my uncle. We're both Army veterans. They're like, hey, if you ever want to talk, you know, we're here for you. And I was like, yeah, whatever. And every time, you know, something would come up and I feel like I need to share this with somebody, or I don't know how to share this, or the emotional side of it, you know, that was the part that was hard. It was one thing to be able to share a war story or a funny story or something that they went through we could all relate to, but being able to share the emotional parts, I didn't have any experience with. But I found I had done this workshop called the Combat Paper Project, where we took military uniforms and turned them into handmade paper. It was during an exhibit for that. My dad came down to the show, and he was looking at it, and he's like, I never knew that you went through any of this. It's like, because I never knew, when to talk about it. It's like, I can't be like, Dad, pass the mashed potatoes. I watched my buddies burn to death in a Humvee. Like, there was never a bridge for that until I had art and writing to create that bridge. And it also, through the abstractness of art, it gives us a bridge, but it's a drawbridge that you can control who has access to it. So there's lots of times where I've created something where somebody would come up and be like, oh, where did this come from? And, you get those bad vibes, and you're like, oh, I was just felt like experimenting with blue that day, and like just kind of brush it off. But then when it's somebody that you want to make that connection with, you'd be like, hey, this is what I was processing, and this is what I was going through. And you can let that down and control the access to it. And finding those ways of communicating has been the most powerful part of this process. And then something Roman said, how originally it started out as like the storytelling process, and now it's kind of turned way more into the emotional part of it and like the shared experiences. 10 years ago, I had this linear story that I felt like needed to be told. And now it's, okay, everybody's been through trauma and everybody has shared experiences, whether it's with a rifle or whether it was something in the United States. Trauma happens to everybody, and we all need ways of processing it. So a lot of my work is more about exploring those spaces and figuring out how to teach other people or learn from other people how they communicate those experiences.
Yeah, it's a growth process, and utilizing art to grow. I always used to like to say, the arts they break down the walls of resistance, not only for the creator, but for the audience that is either watching the performance or seeing the gallery showing. I'm a creative arts therapist by profession, so although I never worked directly with veterans, I worked in the community with families. And once you would, give somebody just a piece of paper and a crayon and tell them, just let it go. The expression and the emotions that come out when they're allowed to express themselves are amazing. And that's the advantage that the arts have over just regular talk therapy and things like that. It just literally can break through that resistance without anybody knowing it at first. Richard, did you have anything to add to the, about the process? Richard, I can't. Volume.
Sorry. I have a dual mic set up, so I have this guy. But to kind of go off, honestly, like what Joe was saying is that when we teach veterans the whole art form, we teach how you can hide stuff in your art, and how if the more that you don't want to talk about, the more abstract we'll go with the product that you have in the end. We've had veterans who have just hid things straight up into songs and art pieces that have been the way that they've been able to talk about it, because if they put it in a room, they could think that someone interprets it, and then to them, that's like they told their whole story if they didn't have to say a word. So throughout this process, like we had a veteran who his trigger was pomegranates. And so his buddy was shot in a cornfield. And then by the time they medevaced him, it was out of a pomegranate field. He's never done art before in his life, but he's sharing with me his story, because on the first day of classes, everyone actually does a one-on-one with me, and I get to tell them what their story looks like as a piece of art rather than just trying to teach them art. You can't teach a veteran Picasso if they never really studied him. Even if you tell them how awesome the figure is and how he changed the face so many times, the veteran most likely would be like, well, it just looks like a kid could do it. But the moment you say, a veteran says, I was shot or my buddy was shot in a cornfield, he died in this pomegranate field, that's my opportunity to say, hey, you don't have to go be able to paint like crazy or sculpt like crazy. You could just go buy a corn stalk, go buy a pomegranate, go write his dying words on a piece of paper. And there's a very abstract way of saying he was shot here, it ended here. And this veteran went on and took it to another level, to where at the end of the 3 weeks, he had this, he said that it took 30 minutes for the chopper to get there, and that's why his friend died in his arms. And so he did the piece for 30 minutes straight. So he wrote his dying words in red paint for 30 minutes straight. When it stopped, he had a plaster mold of his hand that he screwed into this piece of wood that he painted on with pomegranate seeds that fell to the floor with a pomegranate. And the crazy thing was, on that first day of class, when he said, I can't go into a Target or anything, if I see a pomegranate, I freak out. That's my trigger. After 3 weeks, he was calling me. He's like, Richard, I can't find a pomegranate anywhere. I went to this place. I went to this place. So already that transition has been in place to where he thought about it as a traumatic experience, but he transitioned that warrior brain to the artist brain. So now he's thinking about all these negatives as positives, and he's using it as a piece for his artwork. He went through the program 5 years ago at the school there in Chicago. He just donated $100 so that we can give Procreate to 10 veterans, which is just an app that you could use on iPad, because he said, you don't know what this has done for me. I still haven't done ceramics since then, but I'm in my artist brain. So I use my iPad and I draw and I doodle and I make all these things. And it's my way of expressing myself now. So our process is treating the veteran like a normal person, like a student. They get a syllabus like anybody else. We don't say, hey, you have to follow these rules. It's like, hey, we're flying you out here for 3 weeks. You follow the syllabus. If you miss 3 classes, you're out, like a normal student would be. And we teach them like normal veterans, except for we hone in on that, what they need to say the most.
Wow. It is. We used to keep portfolios of the individuals that we worked with in my organization. And if you would look at either their writings or their paintings and drawings at the beginning when they would start to the end when the program would be over, I did a lot of work in detention centers. And the transformation is amazing. You literally see it and read it in front of you. And when the individual then looks back at and reviews their own artwork from beginning to the point when they're leaving the program, the tears, the crying that comes out is, it's just such a breakthrough. And that's what all of the arts do for everybody. And that's what you guys are doing is just so important. And as far as I'm concerned, not talked about as much as it should be. Which again leads to my other question. As an organization, take COVID maybe out of the picture. What do you think are your biggest challenges you face as an organization? Is it getting veterans to come in? Is it getting them maybe to open up? Is it getting an audience to appreciate or understand what's going on? Anybody?
Is that to me directly or everyone?
Everyone, anyone.
Oh yeah, for us, I mean, we have a very long waiting list of veterans just because our programs are so, we don't have a lot of spots. So we have, a ton of stuff. So it's been easy-ish to get veterans involved with our programming. Honestly, it's obviously everyone knows this. It's the grind of the fundraising game of getting people to believe that the arts works for veterans, because you're dealing with a whole different group of people who, if people donate to arts, they don't always would donate to the veterans groups. And so now you're trying to get veterans group people to donate to the arts. And it's kind of like some of them just don't get it. I've been on so many calls with people who are like big time military donors, and I'm saying how I enroll them into the best art schools in the country. And there's like, I don't get it. I don't know. I mean, I had a call with Boeing in Chicago, and Boeing in Seattle was totally up for it. They were funding half of a program at University of Washington. But Boeing in Chicago, for some reason, was just like, no, like, I don't understand. So are you just paying the school to teach veterans art? And I'm just like, okay, you obviously don't understand what we're doing. So sometimes it's that gap in people not understanding how truly effective art and music can be.
Unfortunately, that's an age-old story. When I had my nonprofit organization, I was doing direct community service work. I worked with kids in drug rehab, in detention centers, families that were separated. And when you would go for funding, you would go, because I was working in partnership with prevention organizations and health organizations, And if you would go to the prevention and health funders and propose an arts program, they say, well, that's not for us, that's an arts program. And if you would go to the arts funders and propose what you're doing, they would say to us, well, that's not an arts program, that's a health and medical program. So that's an age-old problem. And that's, as much as I don't like research myself personally, I like the stories better, that's where the data and the research come in, because we have to make the general public understand the impact and the power of the arts, which is basically what I'm trying to do with my organization now, you know, with the Arts House. The people, it's always kind of separate, you know, and it doesn't have to be, and it shouldn't be. Like you said, it's not, you know, what's this, just an arts program for veterans? What, you know, just give them paint and give them, you know, whatever. We don't need to fund something like that, because what is it going to do? How is it going to help them? So that's now where the arts and health movement is coming together and helping. And I know in the American Art Therapy Association now, they're doing a tremendous amount of research, so that when you go for your grants and you go for your sponsorships, you have the data to back up everything that you need. Because you can give them all the stories and all the anecdotals, and you know, when the funders are sitting in the back and writing the checks, if they don't get it, they don't see the connection, you're not going to get the funding. Unfortunately, I'm used to that. I've been doing that for a very long time. So that's nothing new. But that's where, again, that's where all the data comes in, and the research. What I want to do is, I totally believe, and I've always believed, that we need to put a face on the impact and the power of the arts. We need to tell the stories. We need to show how the arts make a direct impact on someone's life, on a community, on a society. And that's what I'm trying to do now as well. We just started a campaign called Voice Arts Value. And this is where Carissa actually had participated, because we had a form of this campaign 3 years ago to talk about the power and the impact of the arts and how it directly impacted individuals. And we had, you know, actually the veterans organizations were one of the first to reach out to me to say, we have stories to tell. And literally, I'm used to seeing a lot of things because I work out in the streets, but I would read their stories and literally cry. Those are the things we need to get out. So I'm asking all of you, I'm also putting this out to you, to ask your veterans to send me their stories of how the arts have had an impact on their lives, and be part of the campaign. Because again, in order for you guys to get the funding, and that's somehow, some way I'd like to help, I'm not sure yet exactly, but these are things that I believe in, and that's why I wanted to pull together these types of conversations. You know, you guys, you seem to, a lot of you collaborate on programming, you know, you work together, you know each other. Coming together like this and talking, do you get to do that, you know, on any kind of a basis? You know, is this helpful to you to come together and talk as well with one another, as well as sharing stories?
On the ASAP side, definitely. I know for like just hearing Richard and hearing you talk about, you know, how do we secure funding and things like that. Part of the reason we went to a monitoring and evaluation system to see our impact is kind of the solution on both sides. We needed to secure funding, but we also needed to know, like, can we confidently say, like, we actually impact our community? we see it happening, but how do we quantify that? How can we show it to somebody who could be potentially an investor? So this is how we develop that system. I will say one of our challenges is not necessarily like funding at this point, but it's really what is it now? Kind of getting the word out in other areas that are not DC and Hampton Roads, Virginia. With COVID, we had that unique opportunity to be a nationwide, organization, and that's online. But how do we get local hubs like how we have in DC and Hampton Roads? And part of it is that we're at this weird juncture where we have just enough staff for what we're doing. We don't have quite enough staff to do a nationwide reach that's like a physical presence in like San Diego or Colorado Springs, Texas, and things like that. So that's kind of like our next step. What does 2021 look like staffing wise, and how do we grow? We're pretty young compared to all of you guys. We're 5 years old compared to most of the organizations represented here. But we're at that weird stage of like, we've grown out of where we're at and we're going to the next season. So hearing conversations of what are you guys' challenges and things like that is helpful to us because we're the young guy in here.
I'd like to speak. I have a little bit of different take on this. I don't have a problem with some of the struggles that we have. I mean, obviously, I'd love to have a lot more money than we have. That would be great. I don't necessarily find getting people to understand us to be as big of a problem. I feel like in some ways it's helpful that we have to really explain ourselves to people on a couple of different levels. One of that being it helps us to fly a little bit below the radar. I think when you get a little bit too big, then there are people who want to tell you rules and regulations about the way that things have to be. And I think that it's almost entirely non-artist types that do that kind of thing and don't understand how some of it works in the arts community. So I'm not necessarily upset when people don't understand fully what it is that we do, and we have to really, really explain to them what that is. And also it makes us work harder at figuring out what it is that we do. It took us for a while to really think about why is this working? What are the factors? And I would challenge anybody here, and I bet what you'd hear from all of these folks is, well, there's this, but there's also this, but there's also this, but there's also this. And you take any one of those things away, and it's not going to be as powerful as it is. I love these kind of conversations, and I think it's really important. And yes, of course, we're always working for more people to come into the arts. I actually also really like the fact that it's pretty hard for us to get vets in initially to it, because it's so much more powerful for them when they have the kind of experience that they have with it. And they think about the fact that they didn't want to come, and then they get there and they have this really powerful experience and end up coming back over and over and over again. And I think sometimes it's, I think if something's a little too easy, it's not valued as much. And so anyway, that's my take on it. I would like to just roll with it a little bit when people don't understand. Whoa, hello?
I love that perspective, Nancy. I love the fact that you
just took me over.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. We have another Zoom meeting going on. My husband's on the other computer. And I can hear you. I can't see you.
Well, I was just saying that I loved your perspective because, kind of shining a light on like what we need to take those opportunities to, know our story and know it well and be able to share, our message with people. That's so good. Thanks, Nancy, for sharing.
Yeah, I'm going to have to get off, I guess, because two of us on here. I'm really happy to be here with all of you. It was amazing to see everybody and to hear about some of the programs that I didn't know very well. And let's do it again soon.
I'll talk to you next.
Okay, bye. Sorry.
Heather, I was curious, being in the VA, I'm sure they require backup data and stats and all that in order to continue the programming, don't they?
Not us. And that's what I mean. I mean, I think that if we got bigger in what we were doing, the VA probably would have a lot more to say about the way that we do things. But, you know, we have really good track record and really good success, and they let us do our thing. So.
Yeah, Heather?
Yeah, I mean, I know that conversation of, like, so I hear what everyone's saying, and growing too big is really almost a downfall, and we've definitely have seen that here, because I'm a one-woman show up until like a few months ago, when I have some help other than some volunteers, but yeah, I kind of live in two worlds, right? Because I have one foot in the art world, and knowing that world and feeling way more comfortable in that world than the VA world, which I also live in, and becoming a lot more comfortable with how to navigate that in order to bridge it. And so for a lot, it's my job is more of a cultural shift in valuing art. So a little bit what you were talking about, Lois, and like having people value the advantages of having and using art as kind of a side door to processing, and creating that vulnerability, creating a space for that place where folks can use it as kind of an object to talk about themselves. Richard talked a little bit about that, of like using art as a reflection of themselves and talking about it in a different way. So you know, I've built myself into a box a little bit with research, but also I'm super interested in research. So I think there's no way that the VA is going to do anything unless it's evidence-based. Because and it's great that she's flying under the radar. They've built such a wonderful name and have such anecdotal evidence, which is amazing. But in order to really make this a national program and to make sure that folks are connected to all these different organizations, I think you really do need the evidence-based kind of methodology. And Grace and Jenny, both of you said that you're having a hard time getting things out. Jenny specifically to women veterans, and it sounds like because Grace, you have so many different time zones. The wonderful thing, there's so many wonderful things about like working with the VA, and there's so many terrible things about working with the VA. And I walk both lines. I do feel like I'm the luckiest person because I have a federal job that's about arts, and it's about creating relationships with other organizations. So one thing that we can do really well and pretty easily is put information out there. So there isn't another me, but there are other whole health representatives at every single VA across the country. There isn't a me, but there are other people that are art therapists or dance therapists, and that are hungry for workshops virtually. They don't, a lot of times that they're so bogged down with actual clinic visits that they don't have time to do this, to have a Zoom meeting. So if I can be any help to anyone, connecting you, and I understand, Grace, that like jumping from like DC area to a national you only have so much bandwidth. We all only have so much bandwidth. But if you wanted to start somewhere, if it's a Columbus or somewhere else that you know someone else, I'm more than happy to make introductions and try to facilitate that. That was one of the things that I think the collaboration with CreatiVets went really well, was we were able to introduce Richard, because he's not only doing workshops here, but he's also doing workshops at the Cleveland and the Cincinnati and the Chillicothe, just the three others, right, Richard? Yeah. So that's the really important part of the work that we do, is really making those connections. And if I had my way, that would, I'm trying to move my program, the Veterans Arts Initiative, more on a virtual platform, and a national platform so that we can work with nonprofits and connect you with the right people all across the country so that you guys can have the folks that you need, and the folks need to have you.
Well,
So I'm,
what about like a network of veterans arts organizations so that you can, you know, we can do this again. I definitely, you know, if you're interested, we can do another conversation like this and continue it. But if you all kind of network together, whether it's an informal or formal network, then everybody can share resources, information, help with communication. This way you could spread out and people would know what you're doing, you know, across the country, or wherever you would want to, you know, do programming or to meet somebody or talk to someone. How does that sound to you guys? Does that sound like something that you'd be interested in?
yeah. I'm putting my email in the chat. I'm also going to put my cell phone because that's the best way to get a hold of me, and just text me who it is, and because I'm all over the place.
I'll also make a list of everybody's contact information and websites and all that, and send that around to everybody as well, so you all have, you know, everybody else's contact information. So this way you can continue, you know, if you don't know how to contact one another, you can do that. Heather, I would think through the VA, you have a whole system, you know, of whatever they're doing to be able to like connect or to let other people know what's going on. You know, it's, when I said I wanted to do this and I sat down, you know, and I had to research some organizations I knew about, some I didn't, like Heather, I found you just the other day. One of the things that I've always felt and talked about, I did a national conference called Breaking Down the Walls, Reaching Youth and Communities at Risk at Rutgers University in conjunction with the School of Social Work. And the one thing every year, and everybody that would say, the biggest impediment was communication. Nobody knew what anybody else was doing. But once we got them together and they were able to share information and share programming ideas and work on collaborations, things started changing. Because we don't communicate. I mean, we have the internet, yeah, we're all on Zoom, but that's because I literally had to go out there and find you. There's got to be, and I'd like to help through whatever I'm putting together right now, you know, to be a resource and get your information out there as well, if that's, you know, if that's what you want.
I have an ask as well. Lois, I think this is amazing, and I hope that really comes together. As everyone was talking, we were talking about kind of this rippling effect of the power of art, and Grace, sounds like you're doing a lot of work with family members, and a lot of folks are kind of making those connections. And if we're going to start looking at not just how these are empowering veterans and affecting veterans' social quality of life and social connectiveness, all that, it sounds like we may need to broaden it out a bit to look at how it's affecting the military families, children and spouses and friends. And I'm wondering, curious if anyone else is doing that kind of research now. It sounds like Grace and Jenny, you are really ripe for that kind of research, but have you guys begun to look at that, at how, or Richard, how that is impacting families at all, like before and after your folks go and then come back, and how that's, I know you get that from your post surveys from the veterans experience, but are you looking at that from the family's experience or the community, or?
I know we just recently partnered with the National Military Family. They're out of DC. What is it called? The National Military Family Association. And this weekend alone, we did a introductory to songwriting with all their families. And now we're following up through January for the 4 months. We're actually going to have a songwriter paired with every family. And then they're going to create a song from their family rather than having this. So we'll have a lot more details. Right now, we don't have a ton of information besides they pinged me like the night of, they just said, we're going to do a full program with you. The families are eating this up. They love these conversations. They're talking like they never had before. So we're starting to put that in place to the point where we'll have songwriting sessions from the children's perspectives and the fathers and the mothers' perspectives and all that stuff. So hopefully after beginning of next year, we'll start having some actual research off that, because we're going to definitely be doing surveys and everything.
I know there are therapeutic art programs out there for military families and the children's. I can find out some more information on that if you're interested, because I know I know somebody who's heading up a research project. So I will ask her. But yeah, I agree with you. It needs to be expanded to the effect that whatever one spouse or mother or father are going through definitely affects the rest of the family. And you don't want to leave them out of the programming as well. So you can always look into those types of things. But any other questions? Yeah.
Yeah, so we definitely offer programming to families, but generally 18 and older. So you could have been a dependent at one point in your life, or a mother or father of a veteran, or a spouse, brother or sister. So ours is a large swath of family members. We don't have anything for those 16 through 18 or younger than that. When we were having in-person programs, we were, but online programs is a little bit different. We want to make sure that we're being secure for those adolescent ages, especially because a comedy class or a storytelling class can go kind of off rails with content. And also so my background is working with youth as well. And I used to put on these huge, 1 week camps where, you'd have 40 youth and 40 like leaders and like hundreds of youth. And we would all come together and we'd have like art programming and things like that offered. But all of that came with like background checks and like all these like, things to make sure that, people are safe and, people are checking out and they're not actually, in any kind of harm. So with that background in mind, we're trying to cultivate, like, what does that look like for our community? Or is there a community that we partner with that is already doing it really well? So we don't want to reinvent the wheel, or maybe we put all our support behind that initiative. So we do have one group that's in this area called the WMAIA, and that's the Workhouse Military Arts Initiative. And they actually do have, stuff that's going on with families. So what we try to do is kind of plug their group. We'll even, partner with their workshops and have families that are already ASAP take those workshops, and then they'll go in that direction and connect with WMAIA. As far as research goes, it's actually all coupled together in our impact report. We take surveys from everybody. It doesn't matter if you were the service member or if you are like the spouse. So that's how ours kind of works. And I also need to be hopping off soon. My toddler's coming home very shortly. He's definitely going to come in this room and be like, I'm here. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So
yep, that goes for me too. I need to go make dinner. It was very nice talking to everybody.
Yeah.
You're making something good. Okay.
Thank you so
Bye.
much.
Thank you, Lois.
Okay.
I look forward to talking to you guys and learning from all the hard work you guys are doing. Thank you.
I enjoy talking to you. You too.
I will be in touch with everybody, and we definitely, I can pull this together again soon, okay?
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Have a good one. Have a good night.
You too.
Oh gosh, where to go?